Thank you everyone for joining this session. This is one of my favorite sessions because it's all about creating reports that let you take actions. So this is actually what every business user that I'm talking to wants. They want action-driven design. They want to make data-driven decisions. All these buzzwords that they want to do stuff with their data. And that's actually not what they ask. When you talk to a lot of business users, they say, yeah, we have data. Can you visualize it? And of course, you can visualize everything. I mean, I don't even need to know the data and I can make some really nice visuals. Probably they're useless, but you can visualize everything. But what they actually want is to take some action there. So that is what the business wants. And then there's this developer, like the creator of the reports, us, that spent like hours, days, weeks. I've spent weeks on some reports, building these awesome reports, and you did everything they asked, and you are very, very sure that they will love it and use it every day. And then you check like the usage report and you see nothing's going on. And then you call them or you have a meeting with them and they're like, yeah, not entirely what we were looking for, or they just seem to lose interest. And that's horrible because we put so much effort in creating these reports. And I mean, we want them to be used, don't we? And there are several reasons. Like one of the reasons why people don't use reports is because, well, the data isn't good. We obviously have to fix that. Or they don't understand what's on there, like the visuals don't make sense to them, or they don't know how to interpret them. Or there's just simply the wrong information there. Like they can't take the actions that they want to take. They can't use it in a way that makes sense. Maybe they open a report and they first have to select 10 filters, go to page 7, click on some hidden bookmarks and then some drill-through stuff, and then they would find the information, but I mean, no one has time for that. And the average business user doesn't even care. They just want to open that report and get the information they want. So I designed this session because I don't want us to feel like this sad porcupine here. I want us all to create these reports that make sense and that what makes you happy and the end user happy. So before we get started, a really, really short introduction about myself. My name's Valerie. I have like the funniest last name ever, but it's very easy to remember. I mean, you can find me very easily on social media. I have my own company, PorcUBI. I'm based in the Netherlands, and I'm all about data visualization, storytelling, so using data to tell a story, change management, because implementing all these nice reports is not like the end of what you can do. You want people to be trained to use them and adapt to the new situation. And I'm a Power BI trainer. If you want to connect, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very slow in responding. I will apologize in advance. But I love it when you send me messages and I will respond to them. It just takes some time. And a lot of stuff that I'm showing during my presentation is also on my YouTube channel, where I have this really long videos where I tell you how to do stuff. So if you're interested in that, make sure to have a look into that. And now back to the really interesting topic. That's why we're all here, the action-driven design. Action-driven design is amazing. If you think about it, you create something that's actually guiding the end user. It's relevant, it's usable. You create something that actually makes sense to the person using it. What that means is you don't need everything. Just because you have the information doesn't mean that you need to put it on there. So only because you could put 10 filters there doesn't mean you need to put it there. And only because your business user tells you these are my 50 most important KPIs, that doesn't mean that's the truth and that it should be on there. Because even though we can put all the stuff in Power BI, I mean, we can create like 20 pages, make it really long pages, so you have this website effect and you can scroll. But that's, of course, not what your end user is looking for. They don't want a summary of everything in their data warehouse. They want to do something with that data. And it should make sense to them. Why care? And this is like an example, a real example from one of my clients a few years ago. And this was a client, they had like all of this data, like this shipping data, like this overseas data. They had this huge cargo ships that go around the world, and they have all these containers with stuff on them. And they want to improve, because when you're a captain of a cargo ship, you have like a strict timeline. You can't just go to the harbor and unload and load stuff. It's all very much timed. And they wanted to improve that, because they wanted to be like really on time, don't spend too much fuel, don't wait too long, have enough rest for the people on the ship, these kind of things. And they had a huge amount of data, because these cargo ships, they gather so much data. You have the data of the ship, you have the data of the weather, like all the things that could have an impact. They have these data these days. And they had a really awesome data science team, because these huge amounts of data, they analyzed it, they improved all kinds of technology on the ship, these kind of things. And they wanted to show the captains, so the people that are on the ship, how they performed. Like, are we on time? Could they improve something? How are they compared to others? Something like that. Something that they can use to improve the performance. And this one data scientist, he was really interested into Power BI, because he knew, oh, I can visualize data and it's really nice for our end user. And so he thought, well, I like Power BI, why not give it a try? And he produced this really huge Power BI report, lots of pages in there, lots of visuals that looked a little bit like the visuals I'm showing you on this page. And it made perfect sense to him. So how do I know about this story? The company that hired the data scientist also hired me, because they needed someone to actually create a Power BI report that makes sense, because this made perfect sense to the data scientist. It did not make any sense to the captains. They were looking at this data and they were like, what am I even looking at? Is this good? Is this bad? Like, what are all these lines and bubbles? And a box plot, really? A box plot? They couldn't do anything with it. So they got these Power BI reports, but nothing changed. They couldn't take any actions, because they simply did not understand what they were looking at. And actually no one understood what they were looking at except this data scientist. And he could explain it perfectly, but that's of course not what you want your Power BI report to be. It's not like the supporting information that someone else explains. It should be something that you open, you see the visual, you see some kind of story in there, and you know what you can do. So it's so important to actually care about making these reports action-driven and really for the end user. And it should not be a treasure hunt. And a lot of reports that I'm seeing are these treasure hunt reports. So the answer is somewhere in there. You get like a lot of filters, and in this case, I only put in 3 slicers. You got some KPIs, you got a visual, and then you get a huge table, and then it's up to you. Like, click around, filter a little bit, search for the information that you're looking for. And that just doesn't fly for the most end users, because, and this is something that goes wrong a lot, we as creators, as Power BI developers, we know this data. When I'm working on a report, I know everything. I look into all the tables. I create the measures. I know what's going on. And I'm looking at these reports for a very extensive amount of time. I think we all know that experience. You work like months on a report or weeks, and you know everything that's going on. The end user doesn't have that. They don't know what's in the data. They don't know what's in all of these tables. They don't know about the relationships. They simply don't want to click on 10 filters. So they have this really different starting point. And they don't want to click on all that stuff because clicking on all that stuff doesn't make sense to them. Like this user that only opens a report once a week or once a month. And I know a lot of end users that only open Power BI once a month, and they're happy they clicked on the right link and got to the right report. Letting them click on stuff, they get completely lost and they lose their interest because they don't want to click around. They don't want to get to know Power BI in depth. So it shouldn't be that treasure hunt. So now I tell you all about what it shouldn't be. How do we get there? How do we make it action-driven? Let's go there. I always use 3 steps. And these are really similar to the steps I use for storytelling. It's kind of the same from data to action. It's research, create, evaluate. And I will tell you more about these steps. And the thing about these 3 steps is most of the time, people only do this, the create part, which means that the research part often is skipped, and also the evaluation part. I see this a lot. There's the end user, they want a report, they contact a consultant or someone in the company, a business intelligence developer, and they say, we have data, please provide something. And the Power BI creator is like, okay, I will create a dashboard for you. And then they send a mail, hey, I created a dashboard for you. And there it ends because the end user opens it and they're like, could have done this myself. Because there's so much missing there. These steps around research and evaluate are just really, really important. And why are they important? If you don't do the research, so the who, what, and why, how do you even know what you can create? Like just putting data on a canvas, on a Power BI canvas, doesn't make it a report. It doesn't make it insightful. It doesn't make it action-driven. So you need to know what you're doing and why and for who. So who's the audience? And it sounds really easy, like who's the audience? Yeah, well, our end user, but who are they? And are they really the people you're talking to at the beginning of a project? I have a lot of conversations with financial CFO, chief financial officers, because they pay for the stuff. So I have like a kickoff meeting with them and they have like all these requirements and they already did some talking with the team. So they know what they want, they think, and these are not the people that are going to use that report. And if I would create a report just for them, that is one of the reports that no one would ever use because it's not created for the real end user. So we need to find out who are they, which team is it? Is it one person? Is it the whole team? Is it the whole company? And knowing the audience makes all the difference in the design and what you will put on that report. Because you also then can ask what their experience level is. And people always struggle a little bit with this one. Experience level, why does it matter? You just open Power BI and you click on stuff. And that's because we know how to work with Power BI. But someone that has 0 experience in Power BI and maybe doesn't even have experience in Excel, that doesn't know anything about data. There are a lot of these people around there. If you give them a Power BI report with all kinds of fancy visuals, matrix tables where they can click on stuff and filters, they get lost. And then add 5 pages, some bookmarks and some hidden stuff, and they will never open it again. You need to know where your audience is experience-wise. If you create like this super advanced report with all the possibilities for people that are happy that they clicked on the right link and see Power BI, they will not like it. If you create a report where you can't do anything, so no cross-filtering, no filtering at all, because it's really like this, you can't destroy that report kind of report, for an audience that is super advanced and wants to do all kind of stuff with the data, they will also be disappointed. You need to know where your audience is. And you also need to know how good they are in interpreting visuals, because I can make this really action-driven visuals where I highlight stuff that's super important. But if someone doesn't know how to read the visual and interpret it, and I don't put any cues in like the title or subtitle, they will also get lost there. So that's really important to know the experience level. Then we have what actions do they want to take and why? And now we are like at the title of this session, the action-driven design. You can ask that. You can actually ask your end user, what are you going to do with this? You should ask that. I always ask my end user that I create reports for, when you open this report in the morning or in the evening, when you open it, what are you going to do with it? Why are you opening it? What is the reason you want to look at this? Because people don't look at these reports because they think they're so pretty. They look at it because they want to take some next step. They want to do something with it. And if I don't ask, I can only assume. But why would I assume if I have this person in front of me and can actually ask them, why do we create this report? What are we going to do with it? When I know which actions they want to take, I can also ask, and what are the next steps? So say you want to see if we hit our target, yes or no. Why do you want to know that? What happens if we don't hit our target? What are you going to do then? Do you have a meeting with someone? Yes. And that meeting, what will you discuss? Because probably we also have data to support that discussion. And then we can add that information. And then the business user is able to open a report and actually do stuff with it. Like they open the report and they see, hey, we did hit our target or we didn't hit it. I now have a meeting with my coworker and then I can show them this, the supporting information. And I can have a chat about it and we can improve it. So that you need to know that. If you don't know that, if you don't ask them or they don't tell you, you can never design in a way that gives you them the power to take decisions based on the data. And that's also why it's so important to know the process. Like I said, it's good when you know what actions they want to take, but it's even better when you know what happens before and what happens after. So most of the time you have that data, you can also support the whole process, which makes much more sense. So knowing your audience, important. And knowing how they're going to use your report, also really important. I learned that the hard way. Because you can make this most action-driven report ever that works amazing on a big screen. If they are going to start to open it on their mobile phone and everything is teeny tiny because you didn't create like a mobile view, they will also not be able to take any actions there. I learned it the hard way because I created a report like that for a big screen. I didn't ask twice. I increased the canvas size a lot. I put all the information there, created this like story-like experience, used a lot of conditional formatting to really guide them, make it possible to take actions. And then half a year later, they actually told me that they opened this report on their mobile phone and that it was really hard to do anything. And I was like, yes, I can imagine, because this was definitely not designed for mobile phone usage. Nowadays, I ask this stuff and I also ask again. And I show them the possibility that you can also create mobile view, for example. So how they're going to use it is super important, because you can design in a way that works for that usage, and then you can make it action-driven again. Thinking about it, why do we need to know all this information? If we just create visuals with some data that doesn't mean anything, there is no real purpose. And they can be as beautiful as this AI generated picture, where you see all kinds of column charts in there, and it can be really nice, but it doesn't tell you anything. And it's the same for your Power BI report. If you put in their visuals just to put in their visuals, because, well, who doesn't like a tree map? These kind of things, there is no purpose, and it will not improve usability. It will not improve how your user perceives the data and works with the data. So we want to design to take the next step. And going back to this treasure hunt report here, this, of course, is not super insightful. I see at the left side that I have this unit sold, including target, and I see this column chart where we see units sold and the target next to each other, really, really hard to read. If I focus just on 1 month, I can easily see is the target hit or not. But if I look at like the 12 months that I see here, quite hard to see when did we hit the target. I see in the table, I have all my categories and my products in there, and then I have it by month, and I couldn't make any decision based on this. Just looking at it, just opening this report in the morning, it would not be enough. So how can we improve that? I could, instead of doing this column chart here, where I have every month next to each other, use conditional formatting and some DAX to create a stacked bar chart, column chart, sorry, to show was the target hit or not, and color if the target was hit or not. So everything below or until the target, in this case, is gray, and everything above the target is green. Please use something with more contrast than I did. Probably this accessibility-wise will not be the best color choice here. This is an easy trick. I just create some DAX measures and use a stacked chart. This is so much easier for your end user to see. And there, of course, are other options. You could have a normal chart and do some overlap there. You could use error bars to indicate if a target was hit. There are several options you can use. They're a little bit out of the box, so you need to do some tweaking there with conditional formatting and some DAX. But even if you're new, this sounds probably a little bit like a lot. But once you learn these things, your life will be a lot easier. And for your end user, it's also easier to see what they can do. And this is one of the examples I actually have on my YouTube channel. So if you want to learn how to do that, take a look there. So visualizing it like this, I easily see was the target hit or not. It's easier on the eye. Knowing that information, we hit our target or we didn't hit our target. For example, in March, we quite obviously did not hit our target. Now, I would assume, and that's something I would check with my end user, that my end user wants to do something with that information because, yeah, well, we didn't hit our target. Okay, but why? So it could be that they want to have a look into the categories. Like they would click on March and then want to see in a new visual which of my categories are not performing that well. Because is it everything or is it like a specific category? We are looking at sales here. And we would see like computers are really not that well performing. And office electronics and supplies also not. But for example, smart home and headphones are doing fine. So then we could focus in our conversation, or the end user could do that, to actually have a look into these categories that are not performing that well. So what I could do is go into these categories and then have a look into the specific products. Because, well, maybe not all products in a category are not performing. Maybe there's like this one product, like product 1 in this example, that's really not performing as good. Maybe it was just like a trend or people don't like it anymore or there's a better option. we could choose to not sell that anymore and focus, for example, on product 6 in this example, which is still really well performing, even though the whole category and the other products are not performing that well. So then, of course, I will not go on endlessly with this. We could have, for example, a chat with the manufacturer. Like product 1 isn't selling that much. Why is that the case? Is it the manufacturing, or we could have a chat with the account manager about it? Like there are all these steps that you can take based on this information, but this only works if this is really your process and if this is really what your end user wants to do. Because if they don't even care about the product because they can't do anything about it, doesn't make sense to show that. Maybe they are more interested in something else. So you need to know them. You need to know which actions they want to take to be able to visualize in this way. But comparing what you see on the left side of the screen, this treasure hunt report, to the visuals that are really action and target oriented, you see that it's a very different way of visualizing data and showing it. So this is why you need to know the end user. This is why you need to know what they're looking for. And once you know them, then you can design. And I say, once you know them, I always make sure that I know them. I always make sure that I had these meetings with them, getting to know them, getting to know the audience, what they're looking for, these kind of things. I don't even start designing anymore because I really want to spend this time getting to know them. And then once I have that all in place, then I'm going to design. And then I make sure that I use enough context, make it simple and really relevant for them. And design-wise, there's, especially when we're talking about action-driven design, always the question for the perfect visual. And I get this asked a lot. Like, can't you just create a report for manufacturers that is action-driven and they can reach their goals? Can't you just create a human resource report and we plug in our data and then all our problems are solved? The problem is, and I think you already know that, is all these things depend on your end user. Like I said, if your end user has really little experience in reading a visual, they will struggle with some of these visuals you're seeing here. But also, if they really want to take actions, and you look at the visual at the top left, the map visual, there are no data labels in there in this example. It's not really showing you anything to take actions there. It's not showing you something's going on or really reason what's going on. So that wouldn't be the perfect visual. But that doesn't mean that a map visual is not a good visual. This could be like a really great visual, for example, if you show a report or create a report for the whole company and you just want to give people an idea, like we are doing sales in several territories and the darker colored territories are the ones where we made the most sales. You still need to trust that people know where they're living and actually know how to read a map. But this can be like this overview, just giving people an idea. The visual at the top right, the waterfall visual, this is a visual I use with all my finance clients because they love this. They have a deep love for this visual. I have no idea why, but for them, this is easy to read. So I have an idea why. They tell me it's easy to read for them. They're used to it. If I would use this with my other clients, they would be lost. They would be like, what's going on here? Where's the rest of this column chart? So this visual works very well for them because they know how to interpret it. They know how to take action. and they know what they're looking at, and it makes sense to them. Most of my audience, if they're not financial, they love the visual at the bottom left, where you just have these bars and you can easily see which performed best, which performed worst. Most of them like that. And when I use color coding using conditional formatting to highlight like the most important value to them, so that doesn't even need to be like the highest and lowest value. It could also be another value in this visual. They can really use it to take actions. But again, there are people that don't like it. Why? Because they prefer the visual at the bottom right, where we have a matrix. And most of them don't even prefer the matrix, but a table visual, because that's very easy to export to Excel. So just being honest here, there are a lot of people using Power BI to just get data from the data warehouse into Power BI and then export a few to Excel. And then you can wonder, is this good? Is this bad? Well, whatever works for them. Most of the time, people have really reasons why they want to make this export. They don't trust the data. Maybe they do some additional stuff. And then you could, of course, ask them, why are you doing that? We can also do that in Power BI, but there are often reasons behind that. And as in the data community, we tend to make a little bit fun, like, oh yeah, and then you export to Excel. But if you really think about it, I don't think anyone does that for fun. They just really have these additional steps that they want to take, or just simply don't trust Power BI yet. If my end users want to use a table or matrix visual, I make sure to still use conditional formatting. So in the example at the bottom right, you see a matrix visual with conditional formatting of the data bars. If you do right click on your measure and you say conditional formatting, you can choose data bars, just like you could use an icon or a background or these kind of things. Why am I doing that? I'm providing the table or the matrix just like they asked for, but I also make sure that if it's a bigger audience, a big group of people looking at the report, they can actually also visually see the information. So you provide something for everyone in the audience. If I would provide just a column or a bar chart, the people that really want the data in a table, even though you can say in Power BI, show as table, they won't use the report because they want their table. If I put everything just in a plain and simple table, so your Power BI report looks like an Excel report, or the people that want to visualize the data, they're like, well, this does not add value. So providing some kind of in-between solution works quite good there. So when I'm asked what is the perfect visual to guide the end user and to show action, it really depends. Because what is the action? The map could be perfect if you just want to show what's happening, give people an idea. While the matrix visual could be perfect if you have a big audience and they want to see a table, but also want to see some visuals. It always depends. And I know this is like the consultancy answer there. It depends, but it really does. Because you're creating something for real people, and they all have different wishes and they want to take different actions. And that's why it depends what we can do to make it work for them. Looking at data visualization, it's like really small changes that can make a huge effect. Looking at these 4 tables, for example, and I said many clients still want tables. You can make small changes to create a really big effect there. For example, you could use icons, using conditional formatting and icons, giving an idea if what we're looking at is positive or negative, which is much easier than looking into the numbers, especially if we think about the average table where you have like 30 columns. But the problem with these icons is Well, if you do that for every column, this will be a very colorful report. And also they only give you an indication for like bad, good. You can add additional icons, but they don't show you how good or bad, or they don't give you context. So something that I like to use are these data bars. You probably have found out by now because I mentioned them a lot. I love data bars because they give you an idea about where you are in the range with your data. Now, we can already see in this example, if you have really big and small numbers, these data bars are sometimes out of proportion. A workaround that you could do is calculate the percentage of the total, which means you get a number between 0 and 1. 1 is 100%, 0 is 0%. And that scales the visuals or the data bars a little bit better there. And something else that I love to do is using symbols for the values that actually make sense to the end user. So in this case, they want to see the highest and the lowest value because they want to take actions based on that. So I use conditional formatting to say the highest value should be a star, a filled star like this yellow star, or golden, and the lowest value should be an empty star. Opening that table, you can directly see what they're looking for. And of course, you could base this conditional formatting, you could make it rule-based and base it on what your end user is actually looking for. If you know exactly that, use icons and conditional formatting to show exactly that information. They can still export that whole thing to Excel, but they also can use it in Power BI, and their attention is directly guided to that data point. So they also get used to looking at stuff in Power BI. So these small changes, just some conditional formatting, you could also change the background color, these kind of things. They can make such a big effect because they are, even in a table or matrix, help you to guide the attention. And to guide the attention, it's not only important to use like icons of that kind of stuff, but it's also important to also show or add some context, because we can add all kinds of icons and conditional formatting and we can color stuff. But if we don't provide context why we are doing that and what people are actually looking at, it's of course useless. I can add stars everywhere in my table, but if the end user has no clue why there are stars in there, they're like, what is she doing? So we need to add some context here. Some ways that you can add context in your visuals, and they're really quite straightforward, but it's always good to mention them. It's a title. Titles are nice. Please don't skip on titles. And I've seen recently also on LinkedIn a lot of these challenge dashboards where people try to make them very, very clean and they just remove everything. But I mean, give your end users some context, please. Let them know why are we looking at this visual. You can even make these titles very smart using also ducks. And clicking on the conditional formatting button for the title, where you can make it dynamic. So you actually have a dynamic title that says, in this case, the sales target was hit 4 times in 2023, which is, of course, a much more meaningful title than sales quota by months with target in the left example. This only works, a title like that, a dynamic title, which is really action and goal-oriented, if your end user is asking for that. There are end users that don't want to have kind of the answer in the title because they want to look at it themselves. Then, of course, this wouldn't help. But if you have an end user that really wants to open a report and know what's going on and directly see the most important information, why not use dynamic titles that already tell them what they are looking for? The same with the subtitle. And these also can be dynamic. So if you don't want to make the title dynamic, you could choose for a dynamic subtitle, where in this case, I already tell when the target was hit. This is also accessibility-wise very handy because these titles and subtitles are read by screen readers. So someone that could not see the visuals and is using a screen reader, in this case, the screen reader would already tell them what's in that visual without needing to see the visual actually. So accessibility-wise, please use useful titles and subtitles because they are read by screen readers. Something else that's super important, and I mean it, is a legend. Don't clean the legend. Why? And I know it. I look at my visuals for hours. I open Power BI 7 days a week. I spend a lot of time in this tool. I know that every time when I make something gray, it's either below the target or in the last year. Everything else, other color, is this year. And my target line is always like this dashed line. My end users don't know that. Because why would gray mean below target or last year? If no one tells them, they don't know. If you're an end user that opens a report once a month, you forget that stuff. So legends are useful, and you can actually say for the legend style, make it dots and these legend markers, so you get this effect. Please use that. Don't skip on your legend. Something else that I use a lot because I use tons of conditional formatting and DAX is color coding. I love doing that. I found out how to do it and never stopped. But if you use color coding, make sure that it's accessible, but also make sure that your end user knows what they're looking at. Don't use too much color, because you can color code everything in 20 colors and then it's useless again. But every time you use something of color coding, make sure it's accessible, make sure somewhere in the legend you see what's going on. But I think color coding can be very, very effective because using a different color than your average color in a report directly guides the attention there. These will be the things that the end user is actually looking at. And then next to adding context, something that I think is really crucial when we think about action-driven design is to make it as simple as possible, which doesn't mean make everything simple, please don't, but look at your end user, look at their requirements, what they're looking for, and check if you can simplify stuff. So in this case, we have sales targeted 4 times, and we have this chart, and we have color coding, and all kinds of things going on. But if you know that your end user actually only wants to know which months did we hit our target and which months did we not hit our target, and then they want to click on that month and everything else in the report changes, you can just provide them with that information. Because if they don't care what's the distance and all this kind of stuff, just provide them, in this case, with a heat map. And this heat map, it's a matrix visual in Power BI where I use conditional formatting to show if a target was hit or not. So this is one of the native visuals. It's just a matrix using conditional formatting. If your user doesn't need the exact information, this could be perfect because they clearly see, okay, there are 4 months where something's happening. We did not hit it in the other months. I can click on it, everything else filters. And of course, maybe they want to see it by day. Here we have it by months. You could also show it like that. Also, again, matrix visual here with conditional formatting. This makes it really simple for the end user. We see kind of the same information. In all 3 of these visuals, we see that the sales target was hit or wasn't hit, but it's just showcased in different ways. And you need to check with your end user what they're really looking for and how they will make decisions afterwards. But there are so many possibilities. And sometimes it's just thinking a little bit further, like, what else could I do? How could I showcase it? And something I'm doing a lot is asking them, like, currently, what tools are you using to get this information? How are they visualized? Or I ask them, if you could design something, and don't think about what's really possible. Just tell me, if you could really imagine anything, how would that look like? And sometimes that also gives me ideas into how I could visualize stuff in Power BI. Just don't limit to the things you get normally. Think about the possibilities you have, because in Power BI, the formatting options seem endless. You can do so much. And thinking about action-driven design, there's always this discussion, table versus visual. Can we make a table action-driven? If your user really likes a table and you provide them with a visual, and this visual shows you the same information as a table, it's just visualized. But if your end user really loves that table, they will not accept the visual. Personally, I think this visual, this is a burn down chart. It really easily shows me what's going on because I'm used to it. I work with it a lot. I can read it, interpret it. I know how to use it. They won't accept it. If I really like this visualized view, I wouldn't accept the table. So the workaround for me would be creating a matrix visual with the data bars in there. You see, I have a deep passion for these data bars. They come back for the third time in this presentation, I think. But they're kind of the in-between solution for the end user that wants to take actions, but don't want to step away from the table, but maybe the visual is just one step too far for them. Looking at the design, we should always choose simple and relevant design. And what's relevant design? It's the design that helps the end user to take the actions that they need or want to take. So it means simple, just like don't do too much, and relevant, the thing that they want to know to take the actions. And when you get started with conditional formatting, make sure that you're not overdoing it, because the table I'm showing you at this moment, you can easily see, even if you don't know anything about the data, that Office Electronics Product 4, there's something going on. If you do a lot of conditional formatting, this effect will be gone. Don't overdo it, and always ask yourself when designing, does this still add value? Just because you can use conditional formatting on everything in a table, it doesn't mean you should. Use conditional formatting to actually guide the attention of the user. This is not like an art project. It's really a report that people use to take decisions. So now if you wonder, okay, this design stuff sounds nice, but how do I even get started? Because I have a report, where we only show data that we tracked and dropped, but we really didn't think so much about the actions. Something I would always advise is do it visual by visual. Don't try to change your whole report at once. It will overwhelm you. It will overwhelm the end user. Everyone will be overwhelmed. Try to do it like step by step. And something I'm doing is, for example, in this case, I see a pie chart, and maybe my end user loves them. There are opinions about them. I don't have an outspoken opinion about them, but I think it's hard to read in this example. And what I would do then is I would go to my end user and show them, for example, the chart at the bottom. like a column chart where I tell them we could visualize it like this, and then we could easily spot the distribution there. I'm not forcing it to them, but I'm just bringing up ideas. So I would show them this visual, and then I would tell them we could also add additionally conditional formatting, so we could highlight the information you're really looking for. Does that work for you? And it could be any other visual. I just show them the options. The same with this waterfall chart. I could show them also a bar chart and check with them which is easier for you to read. If they tell me the waterfall chart works perfectly fine for me and I can take all the actions I want to take because it's providing with this insights, fine. But maybe the other one works better for them. Tables, I always try to show them that we can add data bars, that we can add icons, that we can add a background in that, and if that would make sense for them. So I ask them, what is the most important information in your table there? We can highlight it. Would it work for you? And the same with visuals like this, where we look at targets. I show them the different options, how we could visualize a target. So it's not forcing your end user to change everything, but showing them options, checking every visual. Does this visual that we choose at the moment make sense? If it doesn't make sense, oh, maybe we have options. Provide the options, show them what's possible, and talk to them, discuss with them what's going on and why they want to choose certain options. Communication is so important and it's so often skipped. Like I see all these articles, how to become the data analyst, how to become a Power BI consultant, I don't know, all of these kind of things. And they're always focused on learn DAX, learn SQL, learn Python, blah, 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 on all these technical stuff. And I'm like, learn how to talk to people, like learn how to ask questions, learn how to find out what they're really looking for, because that's what will be important. The visual part, yes, that's awesome. And you can learn that. It takes time, but you can definitely learn that. But you can only visualize the right stuff if you get to know your end user. And that's a skill that's very important. And talking about talking, it does not end with providing them with the report. You always should evaluate if what you've done is what they needed. And don't just evaluate at the end. Because the moment, at least I experienced that a lot, the moment I deliver a report, everyone's like, oh, that's perfect, thank you, bye. Because they were not, they didn't know anything, or they had a report that didn't work for them. Then they get this really nice Power BI report and everyone's like, now we can finally do what we wanted to do. And this first moment is nice, and maybe that would be the best moment to actually leave because everyone's happy. I'm happy, they're happy. But the thing is with these reports is you only know what you're missing or what's not working or all these kind of things when you do them, when you work with them, when you spend time on them. Then you see, oh, I'm missing a visual. Oh, this isn't quite clear at the moment. So it takes time. It's just like any new computer game. You get a new game, you're all excited, you waited 2 years for the release, then you start playing and you're like, oh, this is nice. And then after 3 months, you see that your character always freezes somewhere or there's some bug in there, these kind of things. It's the same for reports. It's a continuous process. Because your end user only will know what they like or what works for them when they use it. So this is something, there's not this first time right and report design. I don't believe that. It's like this process that's going on and on and on. So I don't stop directly after the implementation. And I also make sure that I don't start after implementation. I involve my audience early on, already with the research, but also during the designing process, I check in a lot with them. And I make sure that I evaluate with the actual audience. So not the person paying you also evaluate with them, but also the people that are actually going to use that report. Don't make assumptions. Like, don't assume that because you created a report for team A that is super action driven now and they can do everything they want also works for team B, because they maybe have different processes, they look at data differently, they have different experience levels. And it's good to be somewhat proactive in there. So if my end user tells me, I want a second report, and we already created one, so just do that again, I ask what has changed. Can I have another chat with the team? Can I have another look at the process? Really ask for these things, because we know everything about Power BI and these reports. They know everything about the business. And just like we assume everyone knows everything about Power BI, they assume everyone knows everything about processes. So make sure to have a chat about these kind of things. We are almost at the end. I'm also running out of time. I'm aware of that. What if it doesn't work? Please, please, please. If you deliver a report and it doesn't work, they don't take the actions you thought they would take or they thought they would take. Please avoid adding everything you can find in your data warehouse to the report. I see that a lot. People add like all kind of unnecessary data filters, options, just because they're like, okay, this didn't work. Here you have everything else I could find. That also doesn't work, I can promise you, because then your user gets finally lost. What you should try, if it doesn't work, is provide that additional guidance. Don't panic, because you're the expert. If you panic, they panic, and then everyone's panicking. So you should be the calm one, like, okay, this isn't working. How could we improve? What kind of stuff could we do? Can we add, for example, in this table, some conditional formatting to guide you? Why can't you take the actions you want to take, and how can we change that? So the takeaway, and these sessions are always so fast. Talk to the end user, talk to them. Communication is key. It's seriously even more important than making fancy visuals, is understanding what the end users want. Talk to them, understand the processes, and guide them. You're the expert. They're the expert on their processes and actions. You're the expert on the Power BI part. Guide them in a way that works for you, for them, and that leads to the actions. And please, please, please evaluate continuously. If you want to contact me, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is easy to find. On YouTube, I have all kinds of videos about that stuff. I'm on Blue Sky. The QR code will lead you to my LinkedIn profile. And that's that. I don't know, Pragati, if there are any questions. I didn't follow the chat. And we are short on time, but maybe we have some time to answer questions.
Yeah, first of all, Valerie, it was really a great session. I mean, even for me, there were certain things I realized, oh gosh, I never, realized while doing reporting for my clients. So thank you so much for that session. That was amazing. So yeah, we haven't got any questions in the chat, but yeah, I saw some comments from Donald while you were showing few things. He was literally like, okay, +1 for this, +1 for this. This is totally true. So yeah, I think we really got some hearts and likes while you were delivering the session. So definitely, I think people loved the session. And I would say, everyone, I have pinned the feedback link on the chat. So please go ahead and give the amazing feedback, because if you love the session from Valerie, definitely she deserves that feedback. So go ahead, give the feedback for all the sessions that you're attending. It's not just for the speakers, but for the organizers like us, so we can improve things in the future when we come up with the next session of the conference. So Valerie, thank you so much. That was amazing to have you and learn from you.
Thank you for having me. I really loved it. And I was so happy when I was accepted as a speaker. I was like, finally, I can do that session again. So thank you so much.
Come on, we can never say no to you. And I hope you'll be sharing the slides with
Yes.
us. Okay,
Yes.
okay. So everyone will have the slides from Valerie. So yeah, we'll be sharing it with you guys after the conference is over. So yeah, stay tuned for updates on the shared content as well. So thank you, Valerie, and everyone. Please stay on the same track because we have now amazing session coming from Marcus on star schema. Thank you so
Mm.
much, Valerie.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.